Before I stop talking, it's my pleasure to welcome our invited speaker, Professor Sarah Prestridge. Sarah is one of Australia's leading scholars in teaching and teacher education, and according to her bio, was recognised as the top Australian scholar in the field in 2025, following the same recognition in 2020 and 2021. We're so lucky to have her. Her career has been shaped by a long-standing commitment to transforming learning through digital technologies, beginning with her work as an innovative classroom teacher and continuing through her research and leadership across schools and higher education. Sarah's work brings together digital literacies, teacher professional learning, and purposeful pedagogical innovation. Importantly, it remains grounded in the practical work of supporting educators and creating collaborative, engaging learning experiences for students. We're so delighted to have Sarah opening our invited speaker program and helping to set the tone for the conversation ahead. So please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Sarah Prestridge.
Nicole, thank you so much. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming here on this beautiful sunny morning. I'd also like to acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people on the land on which I'm speaking today. The area known as Meanjin or Brisbane is a place we call the Blue Water Lilies, and it's rich in animals like kookaburras and frilly lizards. So I'd like to pay my respects to the Yagara and Turrbal people and thank them for this land of learning. The central argument now, Asita, could you please put my slide up? I only have one slide for you today because I like it's more of a conversation as an opening than it is a presentation. But I do have a central argument, and that is that if we value it, it's an easier road to rethinking pedagogies. And what I'm going to do is try to shape this into understanding what we need to support pre-service teachers with. But before I unpack that statement, if I value it, it's an easier road to rethinking pedagogies, I'd like to extend my sincere acknowledgements to the two keynotes coming up after me. That's Dr. Michael Barber and Dr. Chuck or Charles Hodges, who've made an enormous contribution to this field. Your work has and will continue to advance this area of learning at a distance. So I thank you. So what I'd like to start with is some sort of understanding of what we do here in the K-12 in the distance education space in Australia. So as we all know, distance education in Australia has been around for over 50 years. So we have a long-standing understanding of how to teach at a distance. But way before COVID, in Australia, we've been doing things a little bit differently for a while. So I'm going to give you a few examples of what that has been. So this idea that we're learning at a distance, we also consider it as distributing the teacher. So this idea is that the teacher teaches their class in their own class in their own classroom, but at the same time they're teaching classrooms in different locations around Australia. Now this could be they could be teaching the class here in Brisbane, and then they're also teaching children in Roma, teaching children in Longreach, teaching children in Townsville, because of an equity issue. So what we have here, because of the reduction in teachers, but also the reduction in specialist teachers, children in those locations might not have a physics teacher. So what the current idea, or one idea, is instead of sending those children to distance education facilities, which are brilliant, there's other ways where we're distributing the teacher. So the teacher teaches their own class, but at the same time, those children. And they're using virtual environments, synchronous, asynchronous opportunities to engage those children. So I think that's a different way of thinking and understanding these models. The other thing that we do here is a lot of synchronous delivery. So we lean heavy on synchronous comparatively to asynchronous technologies. And when we do things like blended kind of learning opportunities, we support the classroom design and sort of leave to a certain degree the online or the LMS environment as the sort of secondary to the delivery in the classroom. So children become independent and look at the content in their learning management system, but then the activities are done in the classroom. And that kind of approach to blended activity, or sometimes we're sort of, some people might have termed it flipped, are all different modalities of these ways we're thinking about how to use online examples. We've also got the fully online distance education. We have that around Australia. But we're also doing, so I think this is really quite interesting because there's so many different models here, and to get our pre-service teachers understanding of all these different modalities is very important. But one of the other things we're doing is that we have our bricks and mortar schools, and now you're seeing across Australia a development of the online school that's associated. So it's under the banner of the same school, but they have distinctive bricks and mortar, the traditional school, and then you have your online school. And they're actually developing much more rapidly right around Australia. So in other words, there's lots of modalities. There's lots of ways of considering online distance education. Now, because we've done all these kinds of ideas, we've had to prepare our pre-service teachers for these types of modalities, these different ways of thinking about delivering and supporting students' learning. So at Griffith University, probably, I don't know, about 8 odd years ago, we've got a course where we're actually doing 2 particular things. And those 2 things are that we're teaching students pre-service teachers, how to teach and design for learning online. And the other part of what we're doing is teaching them how to learn themselves as learners online. Now, there's a distinction between those two. So the secondary idea of how to learn online, we're doing that because if that teacher, that pre-service teacher, gets sent to a remote school in Australia, then they know how to professionally develop themselves as they to continue their learning. So part of understanding also how to learn themselves online supports their understanding of how to teach online. So it's sort of like a double sort of decker idea, but the core process initially was about getting them able to learn themselves online so that they can professionally develop as we continue. So what we saw there when I initially sort of started doing this kind of work with the pre-service teachers, and this was pre-COVID, so I'm talking about not 8 odd years ago in 2019, the pre-service teachers would say to me, really? Really, Sarah? Do I have to learn this? Why do I need to do this? Because my teacher education program is going to set me up for teaching in the classroom. There was a very strong mindset to classroom-based responses to anything that we had to actually sort of lift them out of that and say, okay, you might actually get the opportunity, to teach at a distance education school. But I think that has changed considerably now because of all these different modalities. So as we've moved along this idea, there's the pre-service teachers are responding much more post-COVID, but the idea that I wanted to try to pinpoint was not that we're teaching you because of these different modalities, which is true. But I think the trickier thing here is that what does online distance education, or whatever modality it is, let's just call it online, what does it offer that a classroom learning experience can't? Now, if you actually phrase it like that, you're actually lifting up above the idea of the different modalities. So online distance education is not about transferring what we understand in the classroom online. So that's one of the most important things we have to disrupt. So the 2 key things are, I think we've got if I value it right. But the idea that I want to sort of push is it's easier for a pre-service teacher to think, okay, I'm convinced I need to learn how to be able to do this because I need to be able to teach in all these different modalities. I think it's harder to get them to value the affordances that learning online offers that's different to what the classroom offers. And that's the shift we have to make. If we can actually get them to understand that in online environments, it's a completely different dynamic. I'm just going to change my view because it looks like the sun's coming through my window. If we can actually start to shift that, and this is why I'm talking if we value it, but what we value here is not the idea that we're going out and there's all these different modalities and they have to be prepared. What we value here is the fact that it's done differently online, and that different opportunity provides different opportunities for learning. It's a different space for learning. So the harder shift, oh, sorry, the easier shift is to go, okay, classroom online. What I do in the classroom goes online. The more important shift is to say, all right, what does learning look like online that's different? And don't even compare it. To be honest, that's what I do. I say one's an apple, one's an orange. Don't compare them. If we're looking at the orange and we're looking at the online dynamic, let's think about how we start to build capability in our pre-service teachers to be able to design engagement activities that lead to student engagement. If we can get our pre-service teachers to understand learning design where it's engineered for student learning, where the teacher is a part of that dynamic, but the teacher becomes one of the learners as part of that dialogic engagement, which you see a lot in asynchronous environments, that's the real value. The real value. So that's why I'm saying it would then be, if they value that and understanding the opportunities online can bring, it's an easier road to rethinking their pedagogy because they know they can't do what they do in the classroom. They have to rethink for different ways of learning online. Now, I know that's probably my biggest in what I want to say to you today, because if we don't do that, and if we only support this idea of transfer from classroom and you can do all the different modalities, you're going to go out and you've got some sort of competency with teaching online, then what we're going to get is what we had during COVID, which was now Chuck and Michael, I'm going to say something you probably might not understand here, but in Australia, we got crickets. And what we mean by getting crickets is the fact that we got silence. You heard nothing. So if we don't do this rethinking of our pedagogies by understanding the value that online learning provides, we're going to get crickets. Now, I would really like to leave it there because I think that's the most important thing that I can offer and the thing I want to drive home the most to you today. Now, I'm very much looking forward to what Michael and Chuck are going to present today, and I hope I've been of some value and started the conference off in a way where we're really thinking about pedagogical development and rethinking those ways that we're supporting our pre-service teachers to do. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's going to be an easy road ahead of us, but that's the way I think we'll have our best development. And if we can value different ways of learning and teaching online, then I think we can work with the orange and not bring the apple into the orange. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was an absolutely fabulous start to our morning. I really loved just your tagline of if you value it. It's so true, and it's certainly something that I think all of us are here because we do, but it's so great to be reminded of that. Thank you so much.